What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. What is up, everybody? Mr. Ray, what's going on, brother?
Wes, life is good. There's trials and tribulations, there's ups and downs, but having a great day and a great week.
Hell yeah. Well, before I forget, I want to apologize to MFG. MFG, if you're still on there, bro, I know you reached out to me. I'm sorry, dude. I've been crazy busy with work outside of like the Rhomas meetings. My life is like all work and gym and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize, but I'll get back to you ASAP. MFG, just so everybody knows, is working on a piece of art for me. And I have not been a good boy. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm pumped.
That's awesome, dude.
And then Don, I believe, let me check here. I believe Don reached out to me as well. I just sent you a message back on Discord, so I apologize again. Same deal. So I'll get back to you ASAP, and then I'll have my assistant set up a meeting with us. So we'll go from there. Anyway, Ray, what's up, brother? So would you mind sharing the conflict that you had recently? Or are you down
I'm happy to. Yeah, the gentlemen know my neighbor situation. There are shared driveways on either side of my house. To the west, amazing dream relationship. To the east, annoying neighbor always nibbling off pieces of my land and getting on my nerves. So I was having some workmen do some work on the bricks in the front driveway, like extending the driveway. And if I'm ever complaining about a neighbor, Gunther, yeah, this is him. He asked, okay, so I said, when the job was done, I said, did the neighbor give you any trouble? He's like, yeah, we spoke to him. He asked us to wash his car. And so I'm on this weight loss challenge. I haven't eaten much today. And so I tell him, meet me in the driveway by email. And then I start screaming at him. And he screams back. He threatens to punch me in the face and everything. His side of the story is that the brick dust was getting on his car. He asked, do they have a blower to blow it off? And they said no, but they have a hose. And so they washed it off. It was an extremely tense confrontation. I talked to you about it. I mean, and the whole day I was just consumed by images of like violent revenge on him, right? I usually and that only usually happens like once an hour every day, but this was just constant, like adrenaline pumping kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I talked to you. I prayed. I fapped. I was just trying to do anything other than do drugs or drink.
Yeah.
To deal with this. And we had about an hour conversation or half an hour, whatever it was, at night. And do you want to take over and tell me what you told me? Tell the lads what you told me?
Oh yeah. Well, so I think the first thing is recognizing that you're already you're forcing your brain to use its limbic system when you're testing like primitive fundamentals. So Ray is on a diet, and so he's cutting his calories, right? So your brain and body are looking for calories because they're used to calories. It's not necessarily that he needed calories. And this is no offense to Ray. For me as well, we all have enough body fat on ourselves to maintain life.
To get through the day.
Yeah, exactly. But your brain is expecting it. And all of a sudden you're not giving it to your brain. So you're already in like a highly vulnerable mental, emotional state.
Combustible states.
Oh yeah. It doesn't take much. Whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a wife, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. So then it's like, okay, well, knowing that knowing that, and the tricky part about it is the very thing that can do that calculus is the thing that's drunk off of the hormones. Do you know what I mean? Like the thing that you need to be able to observe your behavior is almost unable to observe your behavior unless you're highly trained in it. So like you think that you're right. And when I say you, I mean the universal you.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, great. Well, now that you made that error, knowing that your brain is at like a depleted state or a vulnerable state, now that you've made that error, you now have an opportunity to go and grow a little bit. No different than a bodybuilder when he reduces his carbohydrates, has the opportunity to go into the gym when he does not want to and force the reps out. So Ray has now added some weights to the bar by having this argument with his neighbor. So he now has the opportunity to push the bar back up and to grow some muscle. So that's kind of the conversation we had. And if you want to take it from there.
So there were two, that was the first part of the conversation. The second part of the conversation is, you know what you have to do, Ray.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You have to be a man and apologize to this guy for your uncivil behavior and close the loop. Do you want to remind us what close the loop means?
Oh yeah, closing the loop, man. I try to use this mental model all the time. Like it's no different than how do I say this? Walking out of your bedroom with shit on the floor versus walking out of your bedroom and making sure everything's clean. Like it's so funny to me when people will have guests over. Like my mom used to like freak out every time freaking guests would come over because she'd have to clean the entire house. Well, it's like if you would have closed the loops, if you would have kept this clean the entire time, you would not have to scramble, right, and do a half-assed job when it comes back to like cleaning everything up. So closing the loops in communication, closing the loops in relationships is so important. So like if Ray does not close this loop, meaning like complete the conversation or the confrontation to the point where it's stabilized with his relationship with his neighbor, if he does not do that, then every single time he walks out of his house, he's going to
look out my window.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Going to think about the neighbor, going to be worried.
Or hear a car coming into the driveway.
Exactly. And that's an open loop. And that's just one. Think about how many of these things, open loops, exist in our lives. So it's like start committing to closing those loops. And also start committing to not opening loops.
Yeah.
Like there's almost an argument of like,
no, hold on, that's a Jedi. We got to wait for Jedi University for that one. Okay?
Yeah. So that was the second part.
So, and then when I said, do I have to, I said, this is going to be tough for me.
Yep.
It's going to be hard for me. And should I do it fast? And what did you say about hard and fast?
What did I say?
You said the harder, the better, the faster, the better.
Oh yeah, without doubt. Yeah.
So in the morning, I saw him getting into his Porsche. He was all dressed up nice. And, I was a bit of a coward. Like, I saw his car drive up to the front, and I kind of went to the front door, and I like looked, just kind of like, and waited for his car door to see the car door open, and then I went over, and I said in a calm voice, John, and I had to say John again because I think he was kind of like bracing himself to ignore another attack, you know, and I just said, look, I wanted to apologize for my behavior. And he was guarded, and then he said, yeah, I'm sorry too, Ray. So he kind of beat me to the sorry word. And
I was going to say.
I gave him shit for that.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't, like, to be honest, like, we talked about it rational. We had kind of we both kind of laughed at what fucking, like, gorillas apes we were. Yeah. What apes we were. Now, to be perfectly fair to me, or just, you know, in the spirit of like the kind of intensity and urgency and the adrenaline of having to go up and apologize and confront him again, I didn't actually clearly, honestly say this has been something that's building for a long time. I just apologized. I said, you know, like I didn't say I take my private property very seriously. I didn't say our driveway is the root of all the trouble in our relationship. I didn't say anything. I just apologized. I said, that's not how I want to conduct myself. And don't quit carbs because it's worse than heroin. And so like, and we joked around back and forth. Anyway, Huge weight has been lifted.
Oh yeah.
Huge. And then I've got this Bible app that's, so I was able, my journaling has been, off the charts since I did this. Like it's, I got into a fender bender on the weekend, and so I got to pay for the other guy's repairs.
Oh, which car?
It was just $1,000, the Prius, and his car was budget too. But like, I've been filled with ideas. Maybe he had a suspended license. Maybe he's bringing it to his buddy, the mechanic, and they're going to double the cost. But like, after journaling, after going through the thing with John, I'm like, what if I just do the right thing? Pay for his damage. Am I going to feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So then enough with this fucking detective work. This kind of like fantasy detective work.
Oh, dude. I'm gonna look.
So the Bible passage, the Bible verse that popped up in my phone today was basically something like this: the book of James. Be quick to listen, be slow to speak, and slow to anger.
Oh, 100%.
Be quick to listen, be slow to speak, and be slow to anger. And it doesn't say no anger. It doesn't say don't speak, but just seek to understand first before you pull the trigger.
100%. I'm going to look up this. Okay,
like, what they say about cops where they shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think this is okay. Some good quotes here. Okay, so
Thanks.
I'm trying to study more Stoicism, and
Are you doing the Daily Stoic?
I am, and actually, it might be cool to. I'm going to invite Kaizen up on here. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Kaizen, if you're game for it, because I think you could chime in a hefty amount on this particular topic, because this is phenomenal. It's like, oh, Kaizen's driving.
Okay.
But we basically are going through, in my opinion, a very important social dynamic and a mental dynamic. Number one that comes to mind is in Stoicism, I think maybe it's Epictetus or somebody who said he suffers more than is necessary who suffers before it is necessary. So I'll repeat that one more time. He suffers more than is necessary who suffers before it is necessary. I think that like in Ray's conflict, the examples, and we've all, been subject to this, it's the worrying part that causes most of the stress. It's the worrying about the conflict, not the conflict itself. And then weirdly enough, that sort of magnifies the conflict because now you bring that into the potential, right? Like the potential conversation that is now an argument. What Ray did to his neighbor, it's like this pent up stuff. He's already on edge because of his like caloric deficit, etc. But then it's also, Ray, I'm going to guess that you built up the story in your head. Is that a fair thing to say? Like,
oh yeah, dude, I fought this argument 10 times a day, every day for the last 5 years. And what you said, there's lots of versions of what you said. Can you give it to me one more time?
Oh yeah. I'll try to go from memory. No, here we go. He suffers more than is necessary who suffers before it is necessary.
Yeah. And what we used to say in the fellowship or the program or in recovery is someone who's nagging you, like my neighbor, is like, don't let him live rent free in your head.
Yep.
Don't let him live in your head rent free. So by litigating and relitigating this argument in my mind, obsessing over it, I've been letting him not only squat on my driveway, but squat in my head.
Do you think also, okay, so we've got the story before the conflict and all of that stuff. And then let's say during the conflict, is there a part of you, and this is like some really like ninja mental stuff, is there a part of you that thinks it was escalated because a lack of physical ability to fight.
Oh yeah, dude. Like,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
And I appreciate you answering honestly, because most guys would be like, "Oh no, it has nothing to do with that." But I've noticed in a lot of conflict when I start to learn how to fight. And for guys wondering out there, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, I actually became less violent, and I've noticed that is a theme because I've almost noticed that it magnifies on itself because there's almost a certain fear with the conflict, so there needs to be this like screaming and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when he threatened to punch me in the face, or when you said I'm going to punch you in the face or something like that, I wasn't ready for that. You know what I mean? I didn't know, if I was a trained fighter, like I could take a punch, or I could roll around with him if it's necessary, I guess. But like, I wasn't ready for that verbal threat of violence. Right. And so, I've been thinking, I'm not going to commit to anything right here, but like, I was thinking, like, if I took jiu-jitsu or boxing or something like that, I would be, that threat of violence, right, would land very differently.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
I would imagine.
Or diffusing that, like, because I'm sure you learn how to diffuse threats of violence as much as applying threats of violence.
Oh, if not more. So the best way I could describe it, and especially with jiu-jitsu, I think like with Muay Thai, it's like, I want to learn how to kick somebody's face off. And I know like it's like pure impact. Okay, if somebody approaches a Muay Thai fighter, like they better watch their calves, they better watch their legs, and they better watch their head, sort of a thing. But with jiu-jitsu in particular, it's a lot like Joe Rogan says, it's just like problem solving. But I've found that when humans get in a mental space where they don't know what to do, where the options are infinite. Like if you don't know how to fight, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go freaking crazy, right? I'm going to like, so all of a sudden your adrenaline goes through the roof because you have to be, you have to be ready to do whatever. And you don't know what to do. So it's like this confusion mixed with, I will have to do everything. I'll throw punches, I'll throw kicks, I'll throw headbutts, I'll run away. So your body just freaks out versus think about what would have happened if you would have practiced that conflict daily, like the physical conflict daily or multiple times a week for the last few years. All of a sudden you have 500 times, if not 1,000 times of repetition of, okay, if a person is within this distance from me, here's what I do. Or if he does this, here's what I do. All of a sudden, like you now can control the situation in your head because you can control the physical environment.
Mm-hmm. Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
And maybe the conflict there.
I'm back in fantasy mode of like turning his head into hamburger helper, but I'm going to I don't want to commit to doing jiu-jitsu because I talked about doing it in the past, and like I'm working out with a trainer 3 times a week. I'm getting huge, so I'm happy with that. But yes, the jiu-jitsu. It's funny. It's funny. Like it's an absolute cliche that guys who are in recovery from either drugs or alcohol. Replace it with Christ, weightlifting, or jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And usually all 3.
Yeah.
So I've got the 2. I've got 2, and I guess it's just a matter of time before I add the 3rd.
Yeah, man. Well, if I had to nudge you a certain way, let's say if I was in your situation, I would actually reverse it. I would consider going to some sort of fighting. I would actually maybe even say Muay Thai first, but jiu-jitsu I think is a better craft. But I think if you look at the things that we could earn, like protecting our female, earning money, resources for our family, etc. I do struggle to find one that is more valuable than learning the skill of fighting and self-defense. Only because for a man, it's like you're only going to be questioned like that every once in a while. But that's the part. It's like, that it's going to be every once in a while. And also you bring that to you every day. So almost every conflict, at least with another male, above the age of 15, right, or 18, whatever the number is, right? Like there's that potential on the table. And if you and like, dude, I noticed that even when I was in New York, I was way more confident having been trained in fighting just in like boardroom meetings, because like I don't care if you're the CEO, you're not going to bully me, because I know that the most exaggerated version of this conflict is some sort of physical altercation. And given the fact that you've been drinking, smoking cigars, and eating hamburgers for the last 10 years and I haven't, right? Like that final conclusion is not good for you. So you know that you're not going to take it overboard. And I know they're not going to take it overboard, right? That sort of thing. And it's not to sound tough at all. It's just that you know the final checkmate move is in your hands. And at worst case scenario, even if you go against another trained fighter, you both won't fight each other, because you know that the checkmate move is potentially you killing each other, that sort of thing. So it's amazing how much of a clearing it has.
I love the mental picture of you like flossing and like talking into the mirror at that CEO about like the cigars and hamburgers.
Yeah. Well,
that's a great mantra, dude. And
dude,
yeah,
I'm telling you.
So, yeah, that's something. So, you know, I don't feel less than for not having done that, but that's something I want to add to my program. Like, I'm like, and I know you're not putting me down or anything at all, but
Hell
like,
no.
It's like, yes, I have to add that to my program. I am not incomplete though. Do you know what I mean? Like,
without a doubt.
It's not it's just going from complete to more complete to more complete or whatever, right? It's the, you know what it is? It's the next step on my self-mastery journey.
Dude,
right?
I was thinking about this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to totally change the subject. So final thought, go ahead.
One more piece, man. So like I was thinking about the team this weekend, and it's like, for me, how cool it is to be on a journey. And the way I think of myself is being an average, ungifted dude trying.
Which you are.
Oh, absolutely. Like trying to go on the unaverage path of progress, if that makes sense. And the cool thing is that like, you don't want to be born into wealth. You don't want to be born in looking like Brad Pitt. You don't want to be born, because that removes so many obstacles for you.
Unearned, like that unearned virtue.
100%. So it's like, if we all go on that path together, like a bunch of average dudes trying to earn unaverage rewards, you start to learn that the world is just a bunch of tools that you just need to acquire, like the skills of using those. So there's no reflection. It's like, what an opportunity it is, man. Yeah. So if you can't fight, or if you're not trained in fighting, let me say, then hell of an opportunity if you want to. But then also using your rational brain to say, okay, well, if I don't do that, then what's the downside? What's the upside? Right? Like the downside is like, yeah, I've got to put in work. And then the downside could be my neighbor does punch me in the face next time, and I don't know what the hell to do about it. You know, that sort of a thing. So,
I mean, and we talk so much about conflict in terms of relationships and the Gottman method. And I wouldn't even say, like, it's not just learning to fight. It's just like, it's part of the broader learning to navigate conflict. Like you said, in a boardroom with a bunch of like, where there's egos fighting, right? Like you just said, like the knowing how to physically fight, it sounds like is just a broader part of conflict.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing how to conflict, just like with Gottman, just like with Never Split the Difference, right? Knowing how to navigate conflict.
But there's a difference between learning how to synthetically calm yourself down, right? And actually like being comfortable with the chaos. Yeah. So for instance, you're being strong, or like, or being like, being unaffected by the chaos, or weathering the chaos. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. Like
being stronger than the chaos.
Exactly. That's what I would prefer. Not mental gymnastics to convince yourself that the chaos does not exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, so what I'm actually trying in meditating now, weirdly enough, is I'm actually trying to envision harmful things to myself and then forcing myself to calm it down. Yeah. Yeah. So I watched the documentary called Free Solo. I'm sure some of you guys on the team have seen it. phenomenal. And they ended up doing I believe I don't know, it was a PET scan, when you scan your brain, right? So they ended up scanning his brain, and they showed him, Alex Honnold, they showed him devastating photos, probably photos of like dead bodies, photos of car crashes, etc. Because his friends kept on saying, like, we think you have something mentally wrong with you. Like, you're scaling these.
That you're not scared. Yeah.
Exactly. And what they ultimately found, was in those brain scans, there was no activity in his amygdala, right? Like no activity essentially.
No stress, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. In the fear centers of the brain, when like he should have been disturbed by these pictures. Now, they didn't go too deep into it, but the conclusion that I made for myself was, I would imagine that it's just him training himself unknowingly, like just by scaling these walls. He's facing death, I don't know, 20,000 times a minute, right? When he's climbing these walls. And then he eventually just trained himself down, right? I imagine the first time he scaled a wall, it wasn't probably as easy mentally as it is now for him doing it decades later. So now what I'm trying to do in meditation is think about conflict, think about times I fought, think about whatever, right? And then seeing if I can lift that heavier weight to calm myself down. I think jujitsu, I think fighting does that all the time, right? You have another male who is oftentimes stronger than you, who's been training for longer than you, technically like trying to kill you, like in a controlled way. Can you stop it? So dude, I can tell you the first time I fought somebody in jujitsu or rolled with somebody in jujitsu, I'm not kidding, dude. He was easily 400 pounds, easily. I have never felt pressure like that on my chest. So I started to freak out. Like my brain started, and then it's like, okay, calm down. How do you figure this thing out? And the more times you do that, I think the better off you are as a male, personally.
Fantastic. Well, the conflict we're going to talk about for the next little while is the conflict, internal conflict, the conflict of self against self.
Yes.
The book, The War of Art, you've talked about many times. And I finally picked it up and started reading it. And I love that we're doing it in the next phase of our book club here, because it just is, it provides so many answers for the kind of traffic jams, quagmires I get in terms of stress, fear, unknowing. How did you discover The War of Art, the book?
It was just like talked about in every like business podcast I've ever listened to, every conference that I've ever gone to. It's easily mentioned at least once.
Who's it for?
Everyone. So, but especially creators.
Right. So because the author, Steven Pressfield, he does great epic historical dramas, right? Like the book that the 300 was based on, right? The Spartans versus the Persians, stuff like that.
Started on that movie, bro.
Gates of Fire was the book, right? But he says this is like his journey as a writer, trying to sit down and write, right? That writer's block. That's what kind of gave him. It was that journey that made him realize, what I'm fighting when I have writer's block, or I'm nervous, or I'm procrastinating, right? But it is for anybody who is a creator, who is an entrepreneur, who is a writer, who is learning a new skill. Can you briefly describe the resistance, is what he calls, let's call it procrastination or distraction, when there's something you need to get done?
Yep. So first things first, if you guys are reading along here, we're starting a new book on our book club. This is Steven Pressfield's The War of Art, and it was like an instant classic, just like one of those things. So the first section here is what Ray is talking about. Basically, step number one, and this is for all creators, and I would say this is like all humans should be creators, right? Step number one, sit your ass down to start to create things. And the genius is in the simplicity. So I would look at Ray and myself, like one of the things that's hardest on the scorecard is mastering your craft. Like working out.
Not even mastering, it's practicing.
Oh yeah, 100%. So
it's not mastering. It's merely practicing. It's It's sitting down. You know what you've even said? It's sitting down for an hour on your craft, whether you get anything done or not.
Yep.
It's putting your ass in the chair.
Exactly. So what this book does is really dissects that at an atomic level. So number one, are you sitting down for your craft? You do not have the right to complain that you're not good at your job or your craft, that we call it on the team. You don't have the right to complain that you're not a good writer, you're not a good video creator, or you're not a good salesperson, or you're not whatever the hell. You do not have the right to claim that if you're not doing step number one, which is the most simple, which is sitting down and clearing an hour to do it. Whatever that time frame is.
And the author says it's not the act that is hard, it's sitting down to do it.
Yep. So then what he says is you will encounter what's called the resistance. I mean, hell, there's even resistance to sitting down. I mean, so the resistance is anything that's getting in the way, whether it be fear or the wife, quote, nagging you or whatever the hell it is. It's
or your neighbor, or your family drama, or there's still a couple of dishes in the sink.
Exactly. For a man, there should be no excuses. Anything, right? Like, of course, there's going to be emergencies every once in a while, right? But consistently, there should be no excuses getting in the way of you and your craft, because your craft is the way that you will earn resources for your family, period. Mm-hmm. So there should be no resistance, aka obstacles, that exceed the importance of perfecting your craft or practicing your craft, as Ray is saying. And the number one thing of resistance is fear.
Mm-hmm. A list of things that you might be doing in which the resistance, the fear, the procrastination will creep up. The pursuit of any calling in writing, painting, music, film, dance, or any creative art, however marginal or unconventional. The launch, so that's, let's say, creatives. The launch of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise, for profit or otherwise. So that's employers or employees, mm-hmm. or entrepreneurs. Any diet or health regimen, any program of spiritual advancement, any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals, any course or program designed to overcome an unwholesome habit or addiction, education of every kind. Again, this is a list where the resistance will rear its ugly head. Any act of political, moral, or ethical courage, including the decision to change for the better some unworthy pattern of thought or conduct in ourselves. The resistance will rear its ugly head. The undertaking of any enterprise or endeavor whose aim is to help others. The resistance will rear its ugly head. Any act that entails commitment of the heart, the decision to get married, the decision to have a child, whether to weather a rocky patch in a relationship, the resistance will rear its ugly head. The taking of any principled stand in the face of adversity, the resistance will rear its ugly head. So this is not a book for writers or businessmen. This is like that list basically is anything that calls you to go from a lower state to a higher state, right?
Yep.
In other words, any act that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity.
So
that's my problem with practicing my craft daily, because I get the benefits of sleep, weight, water, active love, goal review, learning, journaling, meditation, movement right away. But it's active craft that, so the great thing about our program here is that you get those immediate benefits, you get the daily benefits, and there's a compound interest from doing the scorecard every day. But the act of the craft is more of a slow burn. The practicing craft, mastering craft is a slow burn. And there's just more opportunities for my resistance to win.
So let's turn this from philosophy into practice. If you're okay with that. And Ray, if you're okay with being in the hot seat here, it seemed like you've now mentioned a couple times where the thing that's lagging the most in your scorecard is the practicing of the craft.
Yes.
And let me know if I'm wrong about that. So for the guys and for myself to benefit from, what is getting in your way? And first of all, if you had to be honest, over the last, let's say 3 months, if you had to give your score on, A+ to F, right, where would you land in the practicing of your craft?
Well, I'm lucky that I've signed up for Sandler sales training, which is an hour and a half once a week. And I show up to most of them. So I creep above an F because of that. Mm-hmm. Yesterday or the day before, my assistant and I spent an hour on a tutorial about the Instagram algorithm to know how to better share my gallery and the artists and the artworks. So I creep up a little bit from an F because of that. But truly, I spend my days putting out fires. Right?
For the business?
For the business. And when those fires are put out, let's say at 4 p.m., I don't practice my craft. Reading is something. I think I don't know if reading's on the scorecard, but like reading every day is something I do now. Most days I don't go right to my phone, to social media, to news. I pick up either a hard copy or a. Don't you love what my daughter did to the back of my iPad? Isn't that great? But
Isn't that great?
I will pick up a book, either in ebook or hard copy, and read for the first 15 minutes of the day. Is that practicing my craft? I don't know, but it's absolutely part of self-mastery. So I wouldn't be surprised if I got an F in my craft.
Well, let me ask you this. If you don't mind, you don't have to share numbers if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But if you are open to it, awesome. So what are you doing now in terms of revenue or personal income, whatever you want to say, relative to 2 years ago?
So 2 years ago, I'm doing much better. On every scale.
Hold on, you're doing much better now than 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
On every count.
Yep.
The summer is a downtime. I haven't reached my goals in terms of revenue. I have a hell of a lot of inventory coming today, hopefully, for my show that starts next week. This is going to be the biggest exhibition I've ever done. And for those of you not familiar with the art world, I've just got a lot of merch coming in that I have to sell in the next 6 weeks. And it is maybe $100,000. Let's say it's $200,000 worth of paintings. 100 will go to the artist, 100 will go to me if they all sell. The numbers are something around there. Mm-hmm. That is a tremendous professional stress. I'm feeling a tremendous, insecurity about that. And Wes or whoever, just compare that to any big deadline or test of your personal test. Can you do it? And so I've taken on an artist, a big artist from the US who's never shown in Canada. I'm taking on a lot of inventory, and this is like where the rubber meets the road. This is what I've been training for. And my neighbor John was on the receiving end of a hell of a lot of that stress.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for it because of the scorecard.
Hell yeah.
I'm not as ready as I could be because of neglecting the craft, And so, yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind if I comment on that?
Go.
Number one, I would not rank you at a tiny bit above an F. There's no chance.
Thank you.
I mean, I do think when you go into operating your own business, it's it's some people go into the realm of like rugged individualist. I'm just going to work every single minute of the day, and that's how I know whether or not I'm doing good. Other people go on the other side of like, well, I'm going to do what's effective, and I'll let the numbers speak for themselves, and it's not going to look like a normal W-2 employee's lifestyle, right? Like I don't clock in at 9 a.m. I don't clock out at 5 p.m., et cetera. And then there's shades of gray in between. The first thing I think it's always important to train yourself to look at the numbers. Like if you look at yourself 2 years ago and the revenue now, then what it is, I think that automatically puts you well above an F. Then I think it's getting mentally comfortable with it, because as an entrepreneur, yes, there are a lot of insecurities that happen because your brain says you could always be doing more, right? Because you don't know when that next paycheck is coming. So I think the more you get indoctrinated into like paying attention to the results driven, right? Like metrics. And then more importantly, no vanity metrics. Like a lot of people, like I would say that actually hours towards the craft oftentimes is a vanity metric. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who work a lot of hours who do not produce great results. Now, I do think in the absence of other metrics, then hours should be the metric because it's the only one. Now, so I do think my gut tells me you're being a little too hard on yourself. My gut also tells me that, yes, you still have capacity to grow, just like all of us do. I would say also that like, I don't know, I always expect just to produce 80%. My goal is always 100, but I always expect 80. Like I always expect a B to B minus, just because I always feel a bit insecure, like you're saying, with the next new event, et cetera. I'm never going to be prepared, but that should never be an excuse not to do the next thing. So then I would say it does sound like, though, simultaneously, that there's probably an opportunity for you to get back to the basics of saying, I'm going to schedule this hour of pure offense on my craft. No fires, no kind of
resistance.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
resistance.
Yeah, just pure offense. Like, and going through it, I think there's this great quote that says, like, you don't fall to the level, you don't rise to the level of the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. I actually kind of would evolve that. It's like you do not rise to the level of the occasion, you fall to the level of your team. And I think what you've done with Sandler is phenomenal. Like you've paid for a team, so you now have right. You now have peer pressure there in a unified direction. So I would say back to the basics. Can you judge yourself and grade yourself on a half hour per day or an hour per day, no matter what, 5 days a week, knowing that you're going to fail 95% of the time, but that one day you're going to nail it. And then I would ask you to send me a picture. You're going to be happy as a pig in the mud. You're barely going to accomplish anything in that hour, but at least you sat down for the hour. And like that I would love to see that from you.
And I think absolutely, Wes, you're on. And I think that for me, it is the challenge is learning an important digital skill, or like learning an important tax skill or financial skill. Like those basic skills, like I bail on those because I don't know how to do them. You know what I mean? Whether that's how to operate my website, whether that's, how to go through all my receipts and log all the expenses, whether that's the skills necessary to, create content.
Sure.
Like Adobe Photoshop, or for example, or something. Like I have, there is the fear of having to learn a new skill is very strong in me.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Love it.
And then just trying to navigate and juggle my way through without having to sit down and learn that skill. That's
dude,
like,
it's perfect.
That's what the resistance is for me.
And that's what the hour is for. Or the hour or the 2 hours or however long that time is. Like you get to bring all of that to the table in that hour. But that is way better than saying, oh, I have to do all of these things. I'm just going to go grocery shopping. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do whatever. Because as men, it's really easy just to distract ourselves and medicate ourselves with other things. And I think one of the most devilish medications are the things that are good for us. Right? Like, oh, instead of practicing my craft, I'm going to go read. Instead of practicing my craft, I'm going to go to the gym, because there's a strong argument. It's like, yeah, well, I'm still bettering myself. It's like, yes, but you're not hunting for your family.
Mm-hmm. Goddamn, I hate this.
It's awesome, dude. It's a great opportunity. And dude, I deal with the same stuff.
Is.
All of us men deal with the same stuff.
Yeah. It's fear, and like it says it right here. We feed the resistance with our fear. Master the fear, and you will conquer the resistance.
Yes. I do think there's a little bit of a hack there that I learned from Tony Robbins when I was, I don't know, a kid. And I've been using this ever since. Probably I learned it when I was 12 or something like that. And he says, what do you have to do? Okay. And then how can you enjoy doing it? Because it makes the assumption that you can enjoy doing it. So for me, it's like sometimes when I have more resistance, I'll put, like, funny enough, I will literally put on the movie 300 or American Gangster, or like I have several things that I go to. I just play in the background. Dude, when I do that, I could sit down for 6 hours straight, just play movies back to back to back, like that I've already seen a million times.
And yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of the technique I've forgotten, or I learned from somebody else, our friend Allison, which is she will go on Spotify and find a movie soundtrack, play like cinematic scores. So it's just like 20-minute songs, like no words, just like kind of like long arcing melodies. And it's so it's like 300 for you, yep, oddly enough, is soothing enough to make us get into the zone.
Exactly.
With what we have to do. That enables us to enjoy doing what we have to do.
Yeah. So real quick, so the team can help you make progress. What are one or two things that you can do to make the process, that hour, enjoyable for you? What's your
I'm going to do movie soundtracks.
Awesome.
And then commit to you, or commit to my assistant that I'm doing it, so that like there's that accountability, and you can either you got my men here on this group can either remind me how's it going, or I can get into the routine of sending you the results of the 30 minutes of the hour.
Hell yeah.
That'll probably help me with my accountability.
Absolutely. For me, I do the movies. I do soundtracks every once in a while. I have a fountain pen that I really like, where I like to build out the space, the environment. It's super clean. It's exactly how, and you're good at aesthetics. So it's like, this is my dojo, even down to like the coffee mugs that I use, like everything I love about the process. That makes me want to do it, because I do think oftentimes when we hear or we read books like this, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to grind my way through it. I do think there's benefit to that. But I also think if you like doing it, if you love doing it, you're way more likely to become successful at it, and you're way more likely to sit down and do it.
So the resistance, by definition, is self-sabotage, right?
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about, where I find excuses not to do the thing I'm afraid of, or the thing I need to do. There's also a parallel peril that must be also guarded against: sabotage by others.
Yes.
Right? Where your wife, your roommates, whoever it is, has other priorities that they need you to put ahead of your craft.
Yes.
And I love this quote. The highest treason a crab can commit is to make a leap for the rim of the bucket. Right? The way there's a lobster expression too, but like the other crabs pulling it down back into the bucket, right? And in recovery, you face that sometimes, where you have to find yourself some new friends that align with your values. And I don't think you need to, you don't need to find a new family every time they try to put a priority ahead of yours. But later down that page, it says the best and only thing that one creator can do for another is to serve as an example and an inspiration.
Yes. 100%.
Love that.
I think one of the biggest things there, I've had this conversation many times, and it's true for myself, it's true for a bunch of other men that I've talked to. Oftentimes we will look to blame especially our significant others, because it's like, hey, I told you I'm going to go to the gym and now you're trying to get in the way, or I told you I'm going to go to work and you're asking me to do all these honeydew lists, etc.
I told you I'm trying to lose weight, and now you got this big old bucket of fried chicken.
Exactly. So, but here's the thing. I have found that most of the time, it's actually my fault. It's like, oh, the reason that you think I'm not going to the gym is because I haven't gone to the gym consistently. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm actually teaching you how to treat me. So it's actually my fault. So I think oftentimes when we have the resistance from other human beings, it's because they're pinging off of your reality for the last 10 years, not your version of who you want to be. So It's like, if you want to train your spouse that she needs to accept you going to the gym, go to the fucking gym, right? And do it consistently. So that way she knows that you are the type of man that goes to the gym. If you don't want your spouse to get in the way of you working, then train her, because you've trained yourself, to go work, right? And then eventually, right, they comply. But they're not going to comply with the fantasy version of you. They're going to comply with the real version of you.
And that training will likely include conflict, right?
100.
Where you have to demonstrate by your actions how much of a priority it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
It can't be, oh, I know that Ray's going to work because he went to work 1 out of 75 attempts last time, right? Like in the last cohort of time. It's, right, like whatever that number.
That one got through my armor, Wes.
Yeah, no. And I'm not saying Ray. I'm just saying, like, in general. You know.
No, diet, weight loss, workout, whatever it is.
Exactly. It's, I know that Ray's going to go to work tomorrow because he's never not gone to work on Tuesday.
Yeah. Or sleep. Sleep can be a battleground, right? Where we have to enforce the 8 hours sleep.
Yes.
And the other person is so close to you that, they're watching TV, they're on their phone, they want to talk. That is one. So like everything, you have to show by your actions how important it is to you, or you do show by your actions how important it is to you.
I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, but I think there's like a body of cells right above the roof of your mouth. I think it's called the nucleus accumbens. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I think it's something like that. And essentially, it's somewhat of an internal clock. You know how like people can wake up and they say they don't need an alarm clock? Well, that's a real thing. So there's an internal clock inside your body. Similarly, I think there's a lot of counter calculation systems inside of the human brain that we won't even admit that we have, right? Like every single time you do something, my brain is counting it. And I'm weighing, and I don't say judging you in a bad sense. I'm trying to learn who Ray is. And if you fail once, that goes into the bucket. If you have actually a perfect movie, have you ever seen the movie In and Out? I think it's called In and Out by Disney or Pixar. Have you ever seen that movie?
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah. Inside Out. It's a perfect, like, that's it. If nobody has watched that, if you not watch that, go and watch that movie. It, like, when a bad thing happens, like a little thought marble goes into her head and it's like, oh, bad thing. And that now gets counted. So it's like, how are we counting ourselves and how are the humans around us counting based off of our actions?
Mm-hmm. Why don't we end on a Stoic quote from Epictetus, whatever you say. In our life, our first job is this: to divide and distinguish things into two categories. Mm-hmm. Externals I cannot control, but the choices I make with regard to them, I do control. Where will I find good and bad? I'll find them in me, in my choices. So in other words, and that made me think of the serenity prayer, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yep.
What I don't control. The courage to change the things I can, what I do control, and the wisdom to know the difference. And what we can control is our actions and our time
Absolutely.
and what we do with that time, how we act with that time.
Love it. Perfect thing to end on, brother.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Beast. You guys have an awesome weekend, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Later.